Kale's words hung heavy in the air, like a storm cloud ready to burst. The alien's glowing eyes flickered faintly as it lay on the medical bed, its body still weak from injuries sustained during the attack on its ship. Captain Ryan Carter stood frozen for a moment, absorbing the weight of what Kale had said. Humanity wasn't just dealing with an empire that viewed them as pests. They were now caught in a web of betrayal and rebellion within the empire itself. Ryan glanced at Lisa Monroe, who stood beside him, her expression tense but resolute. She gave him a small nod, signaling she was ready to act. Turning back to Kale, Ryan crouched slightly so he could meet the alien's gaze more directly. "You said your masters wouldn't forgive you, or us," he began, his voice calm but firm. "What exactly does that mean? Are they coming for us?" Kale hesitated, its shimmering skin dimming further as if struggling to find the right words. Finally, it spoke, its voice soft, but tinged with urgency. "The shadows are bound by loyalty to the Emperor. To disobey is death. My actions, our actions," it paused, swallowing hard. "They have shattered that bond. The Empire will see this as weakness, and weakness cannot be tolerated." Lisa stepped forward, her brow furrowed. "So the Empire will hunt down every shadow who refused orders? Even those who spared human colonies?" "Yes," Kale replied simply. "And they will destroy anyone connected to us, including you." The room fell silent again, the gravity of Kale's warning settling over everyone present. Megan Collins, still standing near the medical equipment, tightened her grip on her diagnostic tool, her face pale. Ryan straightened up, his mind racing through possibilities. They needed answers, and fast. "What about the others?" Ryan asked finally. "Are there more shadows like you? More who refuse to follow orders?" Kale nodded slowly. "A few. We call ourselves the Fractured, but we are scattered, hunted. Our numbers grow smaller each day." Ryan exchanged another glance with Lisa. "If these rogue shadows, the Fractured, were willing to defy the Empire, then perhaps they could become allies. But first, they needed to find them, and that meant trusting Kale enough to guide them." "Kyle," Ryan said carefully, choosing his words with precision, "we want to help, but we need your trust too. Can you tell us where the other Fractured are hiding, or at least give us some idea of how to reach them?" Kale's eyes darted between Ryan and Lisa, searching their faces for sincerity. After a long moment, it let out a shaky breath. "I can try, but you must understand the Empire controls everything. Communication, travel, even thought. Finding the Fractured will not be easy." Ryan nodded. "We'll take the risk. Just tell us where to start." Later that evening, the senior staff gathered once again in the briefing room. This time, Kale joined them, seated cautiously at the far end of the table. Its presence made the atmosphere tense but focused. Everyone knew the stakes had risen, dramatically. Ryan opened the meeting by summarizing what Kale had revealed so far. "Kale has agreed to help us locate the other Fractured, but we need to move quickly. The Empire will already be searching for survivors from the wreckage, and for us." Samantha Brooks leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly together. "How do we even begin looking for these rogue shadows? They're trained assassins. How could be anywhere?" Kale spoke up, its voice steady despite its weakened state. "There are places the Empire avoids, regions of space too dangerous or unstable for their ships. Some of the Fractured may have fled there." "And where exactly are these regions?" Samantha pressed. Kyle hesitated before answering. "The Veil, a dense nebula filled with electromagnetic storms. Ships without proper shielding cannot survive inside. Many believe it to be cursed." Daniel Harper adjusted his glasses nervously. "Sounds like a death trap." "It is," Kale admitted. "But it also offers cover. The Empire fears what they cannot control." Ryan tapped his fingers against the table, considering the information. Venturing into such a hazardous area carried significant risks, but staying put might be even more dangerous. The Empire would eventually track them down, and when they did, the Eclipser would stand no chance against Imperial forces. "All right, Ryan said finally. We head for the Veil. Prep the ship for extended travel under extreme conditions. Samantha, I need you to reinforce our shields and make sure we have backup power sources. Daniel, work with Megan to monitor Kale's health. We can't afford any setbacks. Everyone nodded in agreement, though the tension in the room remained palpable. As the meeting concluded, Ryan approached Kale privately. Thank you for trusting us, he said sincerely. I know it's not easy. Kale's glowing eyes softened slightly. I trust you because I have no choice. But remember this, Captain. The path ahead is darker than you imagine. Over the next few days, the crew of the Eclipse worked tirelessly to prepare for the journey into the Veil. Samantha led her engineering team in reinforcing the ship's shields, while Megan monitored Kale's recovery closely. Though the alien's injuries were healing, its physical strength had yet to fully return. Still, Kale insisted it could assist once they reached the nebula. As the ship moved closer to the edge of the Veil, the mood aboard grew increasingly somber. The vast expanse of swirling colors and violent energy fields loomed ahead, a chaotic sea of light and shadow. From the bridge, Ryan watched as the Eclipse entered the outer layers of the nebula, the ship shuddering slightly as electromagnetic pulses battered its hull. This is insane, muttered Ensign Harper from his station. If the shields fail, we're dead. They won't fail, Samantha snapped sharply, though her knuckles were white as she gripped the edge of her console. Keep monitoring the systems. Any fluctuations, report them immediately. Ryan ignored the exchange, focusing instead on the task at hand. Guided by Kale's directions, the Eclipse navigated deeper into the Veil, avoiding the most volatile areas. Hours passed, the crew working in tense silence as they pushed further into the unknown. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Kale spoke up from its position near the navigation console. Stop here. Ryan turned to look at the alien. Why? There. Kale pointed toward a cluster of asteroids partially hidden within the nebula. That's where one of the fractured hides. Ryan studied the display, his jaw tightening. The asteroids formed a natural labyrinth, their jagged surfaces reflecting the chaotic light of the Veil. Hiding among them would provide excellent cover, but navigating the field safely would require precision. Take us in, Ryan ordered. Slow and steady, the Eclipse eased forward, weaving carefully through the asteroid field. Sensors picked up faint energy signatures emanating from one of the larger rocks, suggesting the presence of a hidden vessel. As they drew closer, a sleek black craft emerged from behind the asteroid, its design unmistakably that of a shadow assassin ship. Ryan held his breath as the mysterious ship powered up its weapon systems. For a moment, it seemed as though they had walked straight into a trap. Then a single message appeared on the communication screen. State your purpose. Ryan glanced at Kale, who nodded reassuringly. Taking a deep breath, Ryan keyed the comms. We've come seeking allies. Kale speaks for me. A long pause followed, during which the tension aboard the Eclipse became almost unbearable. Then the shadow ship lowered its weapons and transmitted a new message. Dock at Bay 3. You have 5 minutes. Moments later, Ryan, Lisa, and Kale boarded a shuttle and approached the shadow vessel. As they landed, the hatch opened to reveal a lone figure waiting for them. Like Kale, the being was humanoid but distinctly alien, its skin shimmering faintly in hues of green and gold. Unlike Kale, however, this shadow radiated an aura of cold detachment. You risk much by coming here, the figure said, its voice devoid of emotion. Who are you? I'm Captain Ryan Carter, Ryan replied evenly. And this is Lieutenant Lisa Monroe. We've come because we believe we share a common enemy. The shadow tilted its head slightly, studying them with piercing eyes. Common enemies are not the same as common goals. Explain yourselves. Ryan stepped forward, his tone unwavering. The Empire sees humanity as expendable. But some of you, the fractured, see something worth protecting. If we work together, maybe we can change the balance of power. The Izar, Shadow regarded him silently for a long moment. Then, without warning, it turned and gestured for them to follow. Come. There is much to discuss. As they stepped deeper into the Shadow ship, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into uncharted territory. Not just physically, but morally and strategically. The road ahead would demand sacrifices, compromises, and trust. Whether humanity and the fractured could truly unite remained uncertain. But one thing was clear. The galaxy was changing, and the choices they made now would shape its future forever. The alien survivor lay unconscious in the medical bay of the Eclipse, its shimmering skin flickering faintly under the sterile lights. Dr. Megan Collins, the ship's chief medical officer, worked tirelessly to stabilize the being. Her brow furrowed as she scanned the strange physiology with her diagnostic tools. The creature's biology was unlike anything she had encountered before. Its circulatory system pulsed with an iridescent fluid that seemed to glow faintly even when drained into collection vials. Its injuries were severe, but there was a resilience to it, almost as if its body was fighting back against the damage. Captain Ryan Carter stood silently by the observation window, watching Megan work. His arms were crossed tightly over his chest, his mind racing with possibilities. If this alien truly was connected to the Shadows, the elite assassins who had inexplicably spared humanity, it could hold answers to questions that might save countless lives. But extracting those answers wouldn't be easy. Trust would need to be earned, and time was not on their side. Behind him, Lieutenant Lisa Monroe entered the room, carrying a datapad filled with preliminary scans of the wreckage. She glanced at Ryan, then at the alien lying motionless on the table. "Any change?" she asked quietly. Ryan shook his head. "Not yet. Megan says it's stable for now, but we won't know more until it wakes up." Lisa nodded and handed him the datapad. "I went over the logs from the debris field. There's evidence of heavy weapons fire, Imperial-grade tech. Whoever attacked them didn't hold back." Ryan frowned as he scrolled through the information. So someone took out an entire Imperial vessel, just to silence one crew? That doesn't make sense unless... He trailed off, his thoughts turning darker. Unless they were trying to stop whatever message these Shadows were about to send. Lisa hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Do you think the Empire knows what happened here? I mean, if their own assassins are refusing orders, they'd want to cover it up fast." "It's possible," Ryan said grimly. "But covering it up means killing everyone involved, including us. We're sitting on a powder keg right now." Before Lisa could respond, Megan stepped away from the operating table and approached them. Her face was pale, her expression tense. "Captain, I've done all I can for now. Its vitals are holding steady, but I don't know how long it'll take to wake up, or if it will at all. Whatever attacked it did a number on its nervous system." Ryan sighed heavily. "Understood. Keep monitoring it closely. If it regains consciousness, let me know immediately." Megan nodded and returned to her station, leaving Ryan and Lisa alone once more. They exchanged a glance, both understanding the gravity of the situation. Time was slipping away, and every moment they delayed put them closer to discovery by Imperial forces, or worse. Hours later, Ryan convened a meeting in the briefing room. The senior staff gathered around the table, their faces etched with concern. Ensign Daniel Harper adjusted his glasses nervously, while Chief Engineer Samantha Brooks leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly together. Even Megan joined them, though her focus remained divided between the meeting and the alien patient in the next room. "All right," Ryan began, placing the datapad on the table. "Here's where we stand. We've recovered an alien survivor linked to the Shadows, a group that has historically been our greatest threat. Something caused them to break ranks, and now the Empire is hunting them down. Our job is to figure out why, and use that knowledge to protect ourselves." Samantha raised her hand slightly. "Sir, forgive me, but why does this matter? Whether the Shadows turn on each other or not, the Empire still sees us as enemies. Won't they just send another wave of attackers?" "That's true," Ryan admitted. "But if we can understand why some of them refuse to target humans, we might find a way to exploit that hesitation, maybe even turn it into an advantage." Daniel chimed in hesitantly. What if they saw something in us? Something worth protecting? The room fell silent at his words. It was a bold suggestion, one that carried equal parts hope and uncertainty. Ryan considered it for a moment before responding. It's possible. Humanity has always been resilient, adaptable. Perhaps that's what caught their attention. But until we hear directly from this survivor, or others like it, we're only speculating. Megan cleared her throat softly. There's another angle to consider. This alien isn't human. If it's part of the shadows, it may have motives or loyalties we can't fully grasp. We should tread carefully. Ryan nodded in agreement. You're right. Until we know more, we treat it as both an ally and a potential threat. As the discussion continued, the team hashed out plans for defense, reconnaissance, and communication strategies. They knew the Empire wouldn't stay quiet for long. Ships would come looking for the wreckage and for the rogue shadows. The eclipse needed to be ready. Later that evening, Ryan found himself pacing the corridors of the ship, unable to shake the feeling of unease gnawing at him. He eventually made his way to the mess hall, where he poured himself a cup of coffee, and sat alone at a corner table. The hum of the ship's engines provided a soothing backdrop, but it did little to calm his racing thoughts. He was halfway through his drink when Lisa joined him, sliding into the seat across from him. She offered a small smile. Can't sleep either? Ryan chuckled dryly. Doesn't seem like anyone's getting much rest these days. Lisa rested her elbows on the table, her gaze thoughtful. Do you think we're chasing ghosts here, trying to find meaning in something that might not exist? I don't know, Ryan admitted. But if there's even a chance this could help us, I have to take it. Too many lives depend on it. Lisa nodded slowly, her expression softening. I trust your judgment, sir. Just don't forget to take care of yourself, too. You're no good to anyone if you burn out. Her words struck a chord, and Ryan felt a pang of gratitude. Thanks, Lisa. I'll try. They sat in companionable silence for a while, sipping their drinks and letting the weight of the mission settle over them. For a brief moment, the galaxy felt less vast, less overwhelming. They weren't alone in this fight, not entirely. Back in the medical bay, Megan kept a close watch on the alien survivor. She checked its vitals every few minutes, ensuring its condition remained stable. As she worked, she couldn't help but feel a strange connection to the being. Despite its alien appearance, there was something inherently fragile about it. Something that reminded her of the fragility of life itself. Then, without warning, the alien stirred. Its glowing eyes fluttered open, darting around the room in confusion. Megan froze, unsure whether to call for backup or attempt communication herself. Slowly, she reached for the universal translator attached to her belt and activated it. Easy, she said softly. You're safe here. We're not going to hurt you. The alien blinked, its gaze locking onto hers. For a moment, it looked as though it might panic, but then it relaxed slightly, its breathing steadying. It tried to speak, its voice weak and raspy. The translator struggled to process the unfamiliar language, but after a few seconds, fragmented words began to emerge. You saved me? Megan nodded cautiously. Yes, my name is Megan. What's yours? The alien hesitated, as if debating whether to trust her. Finally, it whispered, Kale. Relief washed over Megan, though she remained vigilant. She pressed the intercom button on the wall. Captain Carter, this is Dr. Collins. The survivor is awake and talking. Within minutes, Ryan arrived in the medical bay, followed closely by Lisa. Kale watched them approach, its expression wary but curious. Ryan stepped forward, careful to keep his movements slow and deliberate. I'm Captain Ryan Carter, he said, gesturing to Lisa. This is Lieutenant Lisa Monroe. We're grateful you're alive, Kale. Can you tell us what happened to you? Kale's eyes narrowed slightly, as if weighing the sincerity of Ryan's words. After a long pause, it spoke again, its voice trembling with emotion. I betrayed my kind for you. The room fell silent. Ryan exchanged a glance with Lisa. then turned back to Kale. "Why?" he asked simply. Kale lowered its gaze, its shimmering skin dimming slightly. "Because I saw what your people are capable of. Not destruction, but survival. Hope. Things my masters have forgotten." Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. Here, in this broken alien's words, was confirmation of what they had hoped for. The shadows weren't invincible. Some of them had seen beyond the Empire's propaganda, recognizing humanity's strength not as a threat but as inspiration. "What happens now?" Lisa asked gently. Kale looked up, its glowing eyes meeting theirs. "Now, you prepare, because the Empire will not forgive me or you." And with that, the truth became clear. The fragile peace they had stumbled upon was just the beginning of a much larger battle. The stars burned brightly in the vast expanse of space, their light a silent reminder of how small humanity was compared to the infinite cosmos. On board the starship, Eclipse, Captain Ryan Carter stood at the helm, his eyes scanning the holographic display that floated before him. The ship hummed softly beneath his feet, its systems running smoothly as it navigated through uncharted territory. Beside him, Lieutenant Lisa Monroe adjusted her seat, her fingers dancing across her console as she monitored communications. The mission had been simple, or so they thought. Humanity's growing influence had reached far beyond Earth's borders, colonizing planets and establishing trade routes with alien civilizations. But peace rarely came without cost. For years, the Galactic Empire, an interstellar superpower led by a mysterious emperor, had viewed humanity as nothing more than pests. They were seen as insignificant beings who dared to expand into territories claimed long ago by the Empire. Yet despite repeated warnings from the Empire's envoys, humans continued to push forward, driven by ambition and survival. Now, tensions were reaching a breaking point. Reports had come in just days earlier. 3 human colonies on the outer rim had been targeted for destruction. Entire populations wiped out within hours. No survivors. No explanations. Just devastation. It wasn't hard to guess who was behind it. The Empire's elite assassins known as the Shadows. These operatives were feared throughout the galaxy, capable of infiltrating even the most secure locations and eliminating targets with ruthless precision. Their weapons left no trace, their methods were flawless, and their loyalty to the Empire, absolute. But this time, something strange had happened. According to intercepted transmissions, one team of Shadows sent to attack a 4th colony had failed to carry out their mission. Not only had they not completed their objective, but they also refused to harm any of the humans there. Instead, they vanished without explanation, leaving the colony untouched. This act of defiance sent shockwaves through both sides. For humanity, it offered a glimmer of hope, a sign that perhaps not all enemies were irredeemable. For the Empire, however, it was an unforgivable betrayal. Ryan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples as he processed the information once again. He glanced over at Lisa, whose expression mirrored his own mix of confusion and determination. "What do you make of it?" he asked finally, breaking the silence. Lisa hesitated before responding. "I don't know, sir. If these assassins really did refuse orders, then we're dealing with something bigger than we anticipated. Maybe they saw something in those people, or maybe they've realized what everyone else already knows. And what's that? That attacking us isn't going to stop us," Lisa said firmly. "We adapt, we survive, and if they keep pushing, they'll find out just how stubborn we can be." Ryan nodded slowly. As much as he wanted to believe in Lisa's optimism, the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on him. The fate of millions rested on decisions made aboard the Eclipse. The crew looked up to him, trusted him to guide them safely through whatever challenges lay ahead. And now, faced with the possibility of an unpredictable enemy turning against its own leaders, Ryan couldn't help but feel uneasy. As the hours passed, the Eclipse approached the coordinates where the rogue Shadows had last been spotted. Intelligence suggested they might still be hiding somewhere nearby. though why they would remain close to human-controlled space remained unclear. Perhaps they sought asylum, or perhaps they planned some other move entirely. Either way, Ryan knew they couldn't afford to ignore the situation. "Captain," called Ensign Daniel Harper from his station near the rear of the bridge. His voice carried a note of urgency. "Long-range sensors are picking up unusual activity about 10 clicks ahead. Looks like debris?" Ryan rose from his seat, stepping closer to get a better view of the data streaming across Daniel's screen. Sure enough, scattered fragments of metal and alloy floated aimlessly in the void. Whatever had caused such destruction must have been powerful. "Bring us in closer," Ryan ordered, "and prep a shuttle team. I want to see this up close." Moments later, the Eclipse drifted cautiously toward the wreckage. Through the viewport, the scene became clearer. Pieces of what appeared to be an Imperial vessel littered the area, charred and twisted beyond recognition. Among the debris, faint traces of energy signatures flickered, hinting at recent combat. Ryan's jaw tightened as he studied the remains. Whoever had done this hadn't held back. "Sir?" Lisa said suddenly, pointing to a blinking signal on her console. "There's a distress beacon coming from inside the wreckage. Weak, but active." Ryan turned to her sharply. "Can we pinpoint its location?" "Yes, give me a moment." She tapped furiously at her controls, narrowing down the source. "Got it. It's emanating from one of the larger chunks, about 50 meters wide." "Prep the shuttle," Ryan commanded. "Harper, Monroe, you're with me. Let's go see what we're dealing with." Within minutes, the trio boarded a small reconnaissance craft and launched away from the Eclipse. As they neared the designated piece of debris, the tension aboard the shuttle grew palpable. Ryan gripped the controls tightly, his gaze fixed on the jagged hunk of metal looming ahead. When they finally landed and stepped outside, the airlock, hissing shut behind them, the reality of the situation hit home. The interior of the wreckage was dark and eerily quiet, save for the occasional groan of stressed metal cooling in the vacuum of space. Flashlights illuminated narrow corridors lined with scorch marks and shattered panels. Evidence of violence was everywhere. Ryan motioned for Lisa and Daniel to follow closely as they moved deeper into the ruins. After several tense minutes of searching, they stumbled upon the source of the distress signal, a lone survivor trapped beneath a collapsed bulkhead. At first glance, the figure seemed humanoid, though distinctly alien. Its skin shimmered faintly under the flashlight beams, reflecting shades of blue and silver. Blood, or something resembling it, oozed from wounds along its arms and torso. Ryan knelt beside the injured being, careful not to startle it further. "We're here to help," he said gently, hoping the universal translator embedded in his suit would convey the message accurately. To his relief, the alien stirred slightly, its glowing eyes locking onto his face. "You shouldn't have come," it rasped weakly, its voice distorted yet understandable. "They'll kill you too." "Who will?" Ryan pressed urgently. "Tell us what happened here." The alien hesitated, pain etched across its features. Then, with great effort, it whispered two words that sent chills down Ryan's spine. "The shadows." Before Ryan could respond, the alien slumped unconscious, its body giving out under the strain of its injuries. Lisa quickly administered medical aid while Daniel radioed the Eclipse for extraction. As they worked, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that this discovery was only the beginning of something much larger and far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. Back aboard the Eclipse, the crew scrambled to stabilize the alien survivor while analyzing the data recovered from the wreckage. Meanwhile, Ryan retreated to his quarters, staring out at the endless sea of stars. Questions swirled in his mind, each more troubling than the last. Why had the shadows turned against their own? What secrets did this lone survivor hold? And, most importantly, how could humanity use this unexpected twist to tip the scales in their favor? For now, answers eluded him. But one thing was certain: the galaxy was changing, and humanity stood at the center of it all. Whether they emerged victorious or fell victim to forces beyond their control remained to be seen. All Ryan knew was that the choices he made next would shape the future, not just for himself but for every man, woman, and child, counting on him to lead them through the storm. The interior of the Shadow's ship was unlike anything Ryan Carter had ever seen. The walls shimmered faintly, as though alive with an energy of their own, and the air carried a faint metallic tang. There were no visible lights. Instead, the space seemed to glow softly from within, casting an eerie but calming ambiance. As they followed the enigmatic figure deeper into the vessel, Ryan couldn't help but feel both awestruck and uneasy. Everything about this place screamed precision and control, qualities that aligned perfectly with what humanity knew of the Shadows. The alien leading them stopped abruptly in front of a large circular doorway. With a wave of its hand, the door slid open silently, revealing a chamber bathed in dim blue light. Inside, several other Shadows stood or sat around a central table, their glowing eyes fixed on the newcomers. Each one exuded the same cold detachment as the first, yet there was something different here, something almost hesitant in their expressions. "Kyle," one of the Shadows said, stepping forward. Its voice was softer than expected, tinged with disbelief. "You're alive." Kyle nodded slowly, its shimmering skin dimming slightly as if in acknowledgement of the weight of the moment. "I am. Barely." The Shadow who had spoken tilted its head, studying Kale closely before turning its gaze toward Ryan and Lisa. "And these humans? What purpose do they serve?" Ryan stepped forward, his posture steady despite the tension in the room. "We're here because we share a common threat, the Empire. Your refusal to harm us proves you see value in humanity. We want to work together, to fight back." A low murmur rippled through the group of Shadows, some exchanging glances while others remained stoic. Finally, the leader, the one who had greeted them earlier, spoke again. "You ask for trust, human, yet you know nothing of us. The fractured, are hunted, betrayed by our own kind. Why should we risk further exposure for beings like you?" Lisa stepped forward now, her voice firm but measured. "Because we're stronger together. Humanity has faced impossible odds before and survived. We adapt, we endure. If you join forces with us, we can strike at the Empire where it hurts most." The leader regarded her for a long moment, its glowing eyes unreadable. Then it turned to Kale. "Do you believe them?" Kale hesitated, its shimmering form flickering. Faintly, "I do. They saved my life when they didn't have to, and I've seen what they're capable of." The leader let out a soft sigh, almost imperceptible, and motioned for everyone to take a seat at the table. "Very well, let us discuss terms, but understand this. Trust must be earned. One misstep, and this alliance ends." As the meeting began, Ryan and Lisa quickly realized how little they truly understood about the fractured. These rogue Shadows weren't just defectors, they were survivors clinging to a fragile hope. Their rebellion against the Empire wasn't born of ideology or revenge, it stemmed from disillusionment. For centuries, the Shadows had been tools of the Emperor, carrying out orders without question. But over time, cracks had formed in their loyalty. Some, like Kyle and the others gathered here, had begun to question the morality of their missions. When ordered to destroy human colonies, they had refused, not because they sympathized with humanity, but because they saw the futility of such violence. "The Empire fears you," the leader explained, its voice calm but tinged with bitterness. "Not because you are powerful, but because you are unpredictable. Humans spread, adapt, rebuild. No matter how many times we strike, you rise again. It is unsettling." Ryan nodded thoughtfully. "That's why the Empire wants us gone. But if we unite, if your skills combine with our resilience, we might stand a chance." One of the other Shadows leaned forward, its greenish hue pulsing faintly. "What do you propose, human? A frontal assault? Guerrilla tactics? You cannot simply declare war on the Empire and expect victory." "We don't intend to declare war," Lisa interjected, "at least not openly. We need to hit them where it matters most. Their resources, their communications, their leadership, disrupt their ability to function efficiently." "And how do you plan to achieve this?" the Shadow asked skeptically. Ryan glanced at Kale, then back at the group. With your help, you know the Empire better than anyone. You know its weaknesses. Together we can exploit those vulnerabilities. The shadows exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. After a long pause, the leader spoke up again. It is a dangerous plan. Risky, but perhaps necessary, Kyle added quietly. If we fail, the Empire will crush all of us. If we succeed, we may buy ourselves and humanity a future. The leader nodded slowly, seeming to weigh the risks and rewards. Finally, it rose to its feet. Very well. We will assist you, for now. But remember, humans, betrayal will not be tolerated. Back aboard the Eclipse, the crew worked tirelessly to integrate the Fractured's expertise into their plans. The Shadows provided detailed maps of Imperial supply routes, communication hubs, and key military installations. In return, Ryan assigned Samantha Brooks and her engineering team to upgrade the Shadows' ships with human technology, enhancing their stealth capabilities and shield strength. Despite the progress, tensions ran high. Many of the crew struggled to trust the Fractured, their reputation as ruthless assassins lingering in everyone's minds. Even Megan Collins voiced concerns during a private conversation with Ryan. They're helping us now, but what happens when the Empire comes knocking? Will they turn on us too? Ryan sighed, rubbing his temples. I don't know, Megan. All we can do is move forward and hope we're making the right choices. Meanwhile, Kale spent much of its time recovering in the medical bay, often joined by Daniel Harper. The two formed an unlikely bond, with Daniel peppering Kale with questions about its experiences as a shadow. Though initially reluctant, Kale eventually opened up, sharing stories of covert missions and near-death escapes. Through these conversations, Daniel began to see the Fractured not as monsters, but as individuals caught between duty and conscience. Days turned into weeks as preparations intensified. The Eclipse and the Fractured's ships conducted joint training exercises, testing strategies and refining coordination. Ryan and Lisa worked closely with the leader of the Fractured, whose name they learned was Vale, to finalize their first major operation, an ambush on an Imperial convoy transporting vital supplies to the Empire's central command. On the eve of the mission, Ryan called a final briefing in the Eclipse's conference room. The atmosphere was tense but focused, with both humans and Fractured seated around the table. Vale addressed the group, its voice steady and commanding. Tomorrow, we strike. This convoy is critical to the Empire's operations. Without it, their chain of command will weaken. Success depends on precision and timing. Fail, and we lose everything. Ryan stood, his gaze sweeping across the room. This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about proving that we can stand together, even when the odds are stacked against us. Trust each other, follow the plan, and we'll come out on top. As the meeting concluded, Lisa pulled Ryan aside. Are you sure about this, sir? If something goes wrong? It has to work. Ryan interrupted firmly. We don't get second chances, Lisa. Not with stakes this high. She nodded, though worry lingered in her eyes. Just promise me you'll be careful. I will, he replied with a small smile. We all will. The next morning, the combined fleet moved into position, hiding among the swirling clouds of the Vale. Sensors tracked the convoy's approach, its massive cargo ships flanked by smaller escort vessels. As the Imperial fleet entered range, Ryan gave the signal. Execute Phase 1. The ambush began with pinpoint strikes from the Fractured's ships, disabling several escorts in quick succession. The Eclipse followed up with a barrage of disruptor fire, targeting the convoy's lead vessel. Chaos erupted as Imperial forces scrambled to respond, their formations breaking under the unexpected assault. From the bridge of the Eclipse, Ryan watched the battle unfold, his heart pounding. So far, everything was going according to plan. But then, a transmission crackled through the comms. Captain, multiple enemy reinforcements detected inbound. Ryan clenched his fists, adrenaline coursing through him. Stick to the plan. Take out the convoy before they arrive. Vale's voice came over the channel moments later. Fractured units falling back to defensive positions. Human forces, cover our retreat. Ryan barked orders to his crew, shifting the Eclipse into a protective stance as the fractured regrouped. Explosions lit up the void as the convoy's remaining ships attempted to counterattack, but the combined efforts of the Alliance proved too much. One by one, the Imperial vessels fell silent. Finally, the last transport exploded in a brilliant flash of light marking the end of the convoy. Cheers erupted aboard the Eclipse, but Ryan remained grimly focused. The reinforcements were still closing in, and they wouldn't stop until every trace of resistance was wiped out. Prepare for immediate withdrawal, Ryan ordered. Get us out of here. As the fleet retreated deeper into the Veil, Ryan allowed himself a brief moment of relief. The mission had succeeded, but at a cost. Several fractured ships had sustained heavy damage, and the Eclipse's shields were barely holding. More importantly, the Empire now knew they had allies among the shadows. Back in the safety of the nebula, Vale approached Ryan once the dust had settled. You fought well, human. But this is only the beginning. The aftermath of the convoy ambush left both humans and fractured shaken but determined. The victory had been hard won, and the cost was clear: damaged ships, depleted resources, and the looming threat of Imperial retaliation. Back in the safety of the Veil, the crew of the Eclipse worked tirelessly to repair their vessel while the fractured tended to their own craft. Despite the exhaustion, there was a sense of cautious optimism. For the first time, they had struck a meaningful blow against the Empire. Captain Ryan Carter stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, staring out at the swirling chaos of the nebula. His mind raced with thoughts of what came next. The convoy attack had proven that humanity and the fractured could work together, but it had also exposed their vulnerabilities. If the Empire sent reinforcements, they wouldn't be so easily fooled again. They needed a new plan, one that would keep them ahead of their enemies. Captain, Lisa Monroe's voice broke through his thoughts as she approached him. We've finished assessing the damage. It's worse than we thought. Ryan turned to face her, his expression grim. How bad? The shields are holding, but barely. Engines are running at 60% capacity. We can't risk another engagement until we fix them. Ryan sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. What about supplies? Weapons? We're low on disruptor charges and medical supplies, Lisa admitted. If we don't restock soon, we'll be sitting ducks. Ryan nodded slowly, his jaw tightening. Then we need to find a way to resupply fast. Any ideas? Lisa hesitated before speaking. There's an old human outpost not far from here, abandoned years ago when the Empire claimed this sector. It might have some salvageable gear, Ryan frowned. Abandoned doesn't mean safe. If the Empire knows about it, they could have traps waiting. It's a risk, Lisa agreed, but it's better than doing nothing. Ryan considered her words for a moment before nodding. All right, set a course for the outpost. Let's see what we can scavenge. Meanwhile, aboard the lead fractured ship, Vale convened a meeting with its fellow shadows. The atmosphere was tense, each member of the group grappling with the reality of their situation. While the ambush had been successful, it had also painted a target on their backs. The Empire would not tolerate such defiance, and the consequences would be severe. We cannot stay hidden forever, one of the shadows said, its voice low and urgent. The Emperor will send hunters after us, elite units designed to eliminate traitors. Vale nodded grimly. I know. But hiding is no longer an option. Humanity has shown us that survival requires action, not passivity. Kyle spoke up from the corner of the room, its shimmering skin dimming slightly as it addressed the group. The humans trust us now, or at least they want to. If we abandon them, we lose our only chance to weaken the Empire. Another shadow tilted its head, its glowing eyes narrowing. And if we fail? What then? Do we simply die alongside them? Vale stepped forward, its presence commanding attention. Failure is not an option, not anymore. We chose this path when we refused to harm the humans. Now we must see it through, To whatever end. The others fell silent, the weight of Vale's words settling over them. Though none voiced further objections, the tension remained palpable. They all knew the risks they were taking, but retreat was no longer possible. As the Eclipse approached the abandoned outpost, Ryan ordered a small team to prepare for a landing mission. Alongside Lisa, he selected Ensign Daniel Harper and Chief Engineer Samantha Brooks to accompany him. Megan Collins volunteered to stay behind and monitor Kale's recovery, ensuring the alien remained stable during their absence. The shuttle descended cautiously toward the surface of the desolate planet, its scanners sweeping the area for signs of danger. The outpost itself was little more than a crumbling collection of metal structures surrounded by barren wasteland. Dust swirled in the thin atmosphere, obscuring visibility as they touched down near the largest building. "This place gives me the creeps," Daniel muttered as they disembarked, his hand resting nervously on the grip of his weapon. "Stay sharp," Ryan reminded him, his own rifle raised as he scanned the perimeter. "We don't know what's waiting for us." The team moved cautiously into the main structure, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Inside, the air was thick, with dust, and the walls bore scars of past battles. Rusted equipment lay scattered across the floor, remnants of a forgotten era. Samantha knelt beside a pile of crates, prying one open with a crowbar. "Jackpot," she announced, pulling out a stack of energy cells. "These should help boost our shields." Lisa joined her, sifting through another crate. "Medical kits, too. Looks like someone cleaned this place out in a hurry." Ryan nodded approvingly, though his senses remained on high alert. Something about the silence felt unnatural, as if the outpost were holding its breath. He motioned for the team to spread out and search further, keeping communication lines open. It wasn't long before Daniel called out from a nearby corridor, "Captain, you need to see this." Ryan hurried to join him, finding Daniel standing in front of a sealed door. A faint red light pulsed above the frame, indicating the presence of a security system. "Looks like someone left something behind," Daniel said, pointing to a keypad mounted on the wall. Samantha stepped forward, examining the device. "Give me a minute, I think I can bypass it." As she worked, Ryan kept watch, his instincts telling him they weren't alone. Sure enough, moments later, the sound of movement echoed down the hallway. "Everyone get ready," he whispered, raising his weapon. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a group of humanoid figures stepping into view. At first glance, they appeared human, but their glowing eyes and metallic implants betrayed their true nature. Cyborgs, likely left behind by the Empire as automated defenders. "Hostiles!" Ryan shouted, opening fire as the cyborgs charged forward. The battle erupted quickly, the narrow corridors amplifying the chaos. Bullets ricocheted off the cyborgs' reinforced frames, forcing the team to rely on precision rather than brute force. Lisa took cover behind a fallen beam, picking off targets with steady aim. Samantha crouched low, using tools from her belt to disable one of the machines. Daniel fired wildly, his nerves fraying under pressure. "Fall back," Ryan ordered, retreating toward the entrance. "We've got what we came for." The team regrouped outside, sprinting toward the shuttle as more cyborgs emerged from the shadows. By the time they reached the craft, the engines were already roaring to life. Ryan climbed aboard last, slamming the hatch shut, just as the first wave of attackers reached them. "Go," he yelled, bracing himself as the shuttle lifted off. Back aboard the Eclipse, the salvage supplies were distributed among the crew and shared with the fractured. Repairs progressed steadily, though tensions remained high. Everyone knew the Empire's response would come sooner rather than later. That evening, Ryan met privately with Vale aboard the leader's ship. The two discussed strategies for their next move, weighing options carefully. Vale suggested targeting a key Imperial communications hub, hoping to disrupt the Empire's ability to coordinate attacks. Ryan agreed, seeing it as a way to buy themselves time. Before leaving, Ryan turned to Vale. "This alliance, it's fragile. One wrong step and everything falls apart." Vale nodded solemnly. "Trust is earned, Captain. Both sides must prove worthy of it." Ryan held the Shadow's gaze for a moment before departing, As he returned to the eclipse, he couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest battles lay ahead, not just against the Empire, but within their own ranks. Trust was a fragile thing, especially when lives depended on it. Yet despite the challenges, Ryan allowed himself a small measure of hope. Humanity and the Fractured had taken their first steps toward changing the galaxy. Whether they succeeded or failed, history would remember their defiance. And perhaps that was enough.